English conversation.
Grandma, can you tell me how you met Grandpa? I've always been curious about your love story.
Of course, dear. It was many years ago, back in the summer of '55. I was visiting my aunt's farm for the holidays, and your grandpa happened to be a neighbor.
Wow, that sounds like a long time ago. What happened next?
Well, one sunny afternoon, I was helping my aunt with some chores in the garden when your grandpa walked over with a basket of freshly picked apples. He had the most charming smile, and we started chatting about the farm and life in general.
That's so sweet. Did you two instantly hit it off?
Not quite, actually. We had our differences at first. He was from the city, and I was used to the quiet country life. But over time, we realized that those differences were what made our connection even more special.
That's interesting. How did he win your heart eventually?
Well, he was persistent and patient. He'd show up with a new book every now and then, knowing how much I loved reading. And he'd take me on long walks through the fields, sharing stories and dreams. It was during one of those walks that I realized he had become an important part of my life.
Grandpa sounds like a really thoughtful person. What was the most memorable moment of your courtship?
One evening, there was a meteor shower. He surprised me by setting up a blanket in the field, and we lay there watching the shooting stars. It was so magical and romantic, and that's when I knew I wanted to spend my life with him.
That's such a beautiful story, Grandma. It's like something out of a movie.
Sometimes life surprises us with its own magic, dear. And that's how your grandpa and I started our journey together, building a love that lasted a lifetime.
Grandma, how did you and Grandpa keep in touch back then? Was it difficult to communicate?
Oh, my dear, communication was quite different in those days. We didn't have smartphones or the internet. We relied on handwritten letters, and sometimes, if we were lucky, a phone call at the local telegraph office.
That sounds like a lot of effort. Waiting for letters must have been tough.
It was, but it also made each letter so special. We'd pour our hearts out on paper, sharing our thoughts, dreams, and everything in between. The anticipation of receiving a letter was an excitement of its own.
I can imagine the excitement of receiving a heartfelt letter. Were there any challenges with staying connected?
Distance was definitely a challenge. Your grandpa and I lived a few hours apart, and travel wasn't as easy as it is now. But those challenges only made us value our time together even more.
It's incredible how you both managed to stay close despite the obstacles. Did you have any advice from back then on maintaining relationships?
Well, one thing we learned was the importance of patience and trust. We couldn't always be together, but we believed in each other's feelings and commitment. And we never took the moments we had for granted.
Those are valuable lessons, Grandma. Nowadays, it's so easy to connect instantly, but it seems like the essence of patience and trust is still important.
Absolutely, my dear. no matter how we communicate, the core of any relationship remains understanding, respect, and genuine connection.
Grandma, when did you and Grandpa get married? And do you have any advice on how to have a successful marriage?
We got married in the spring of '58, a few years after we first met. As for advice, successful marriage is built on understanding, compromise, and a lot of love.
That's a long time to wait, but it sounds like it was worth it. What kind of understanding and compromise are important in a marriage?
Well, understanding means truly listening to each other's thoughts and feelings. It's about respecting each other's differences and finding common ground. Compromise is about finding solutions that work for both partners, even when there are disagreements.
Those sound like important qualities to have. What about love? How do you keep the love alive over the years?
Love is the foundation of a strong marriage. It's about showing appreciation and affection, even in the smallest ways. Doing things for each other, being there in both good times and bad, and continuing to nurture the emotional connection.
That's great advice, Grandma. Is there anything else that you think contributes to a lasting marriage?
Communication is key. Always be open and honest with each other, and never stop learning about each other. And remember, it's okay to have your own interests and personal space while still being partners.
Thank you for sharing your insights, Grandma. I'll remember these lessons as I grow up.
You're welcome, dear. Just remember that every marriage is unique, and it's important to find what works best for you and your partner. Love, respect, and effort are the cornerstones of a beautiful journey together.